Many critics have said that President Putin's statements, enacted laws, and encouragement have resulted in great bigotry and discrimination against gay people. Why do you think the International Olympic Committee has not done anything?
I went to St. Petersburg at the time that Milanov, the deputy of the local Duma, or local parliament, whatever they call it in St. Petersburg, was about to enact a law which then became the law that is now the federal law of all of the Russian Federated States. And that is the innocent thing that Putin says is blooded is just a law that says that people who are not allowed to tell the young that being homosexual is a good thing and to recruit them. That is all the law is. Well, it isn't that. What's happening is that children are being taken away from gay parents. I interviewed two women who had lived together for 7 years, who had two children, neither of whom were gay. They were children from previous marriages, and these two women had then fallen in love, as can often happen. Just in the same way as gay people can be in a relationship and then fall for someone of the same sex. I knew many British people who've been gay until they were 30 and then met a woman and married her, or been gay as a woman and then met a man and married him. I did. I'm not entirely Judith Butler on sex and gender, but I don't think we're as fixed as we like to think we are. So I wrote an open letter to David Cameron, the British Prime Minister. This is 3-4 months ago now. And to the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and Lord Coe, who is generally regarded as being the likely successor to the current Secretary of the IOC. And I said to them, in the 1930s, the IOC was faced with a very interesting decision. Germany had enacted a law, the Nuremberg laws, that meant Jewish people were not allowed to have any state employment, were not allowed to teach children, were not allowed to teach in universities. They had, in many cases, their property confiscated, and on one infamous night, Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, thousands were killed, and shops and properties were despoiled and ruined and looted. And next year, there's going to be an Olympiad there in Berlin. What are you going to do about it? And the IOC's reaction was literally nothing. Nothing. Now, people say, oh, but that was Hitler. I mean, you can't say Putin's Hitler. Well, Hitler wasn't Hitler in 1935. Hitler was a man who was very afraid of his every move. I mean, if you read histories now of Hitler, and you read of the letters, you realize that right up to the invasions of Poland, the invasions of Czechoslovakia, the invasions of Rhineland and Alsace-Lorraine, and all the steps he took were little tentative baby steps, because he was constantly expecting the League of Nations or some, this body, an influential body of the West, including especially America and the United Kingdom, and of course, to the other extent, his natural enemy, the Bolsheviks, to make sure that he didn't expand. But every time he did do something, nobody seemed to mind. And the greatest single gathering of human beings regularly on the planet, the Olympics, refunded by Baron de Coubertin, under a spirit of international understanding and harmony and equality and so on. There are at least 3 important principles of the 10 which are listed by Coubertin, which are what the Olympics represent, 3 of which are broken by Russia. And I pointed this out in the letter, and I said, I'm not calling for a boycott of the Sochi Winter Olympics. Mm-hmm. It was early enough, I think, when I wrote that. I said, I am calling on you to put all the pressure you can, and indeed we'll all give money to Canada to ask if they can be held in Vancouver again, which was a hugely successful Winter Olympiad. All the infrastructure is there. We don't want to deny young people who've spent 15 years practicing for that glory at an Olympiad. We want to show Russia we just will not treat with the nation that behaves like that to its own citizens. And some of the trouble is, and I don't mean this, I always repeat this, and I really mean it, I have no beef, no trouble at all with individual pious people who have a faith. I think that's a perfectly legitimate and obviously reasonable thing. But I do have a problem with church leaders who tell their believers what to think politically and in matters that are not doctrinal or personal or to do with faith or anything that seems to me that is the better side of religion. And it's when the Orthodox Church, which is hugely connected with Putin, who's used it very cleverly as a tool, because it is, as always, the poor who are the most attached to the church. And so there is something about the toxic mixture of religion and neo-Nazi nationalism when you get the shaven-headed brute squads and the religious together. And the first thing they need is a scapegoat. And a very easy one is a Jew, because Jews are humble and submissive, and they also seem exclusive. They don't, you can't be one of us. And they're family-oriented and education-oriented, and so they succeed very often rather well. And in Hitler's day, they were magnificently guilty of the double sin of inventing communism and running the World Banks. And you can just as easily see that it's the gay people. You know, they don't have to pay money for children. They don't have to pay money for schools. They've got more money than we have because of it, and they're all creative and artistic, and and now they're other and they're different, and they threaten us somehow. And they are a scapegoat. And in Russia, they are being used as such. And appalling stories have come out of Russia, really appalling. And the world community has to do something about it. Unfortunately, the grand politics on the global scale is such that these things are unfairly and wrongly diminished. At the moment, Russia is the big player at the table because of its relationship with Syria. And peace in Syria, the possibility of a peace with Syria, is, of course, everybody wishes to see. And we know that if we utterly alienate Russia, if we utterly cast her out from the group of nations, or expel her from the UN, or anything like that, that's not going to help gay people. It's certainly not going to help Syria. So it's the intelligent young of Russia who hold the secret. Ideally, of course, the straight ones, the ones who just come to the help of their gay brothers and sisters. There's been an extraordinary exchange of letters between one of the Pussy Riot girls and a Polish philosopher. People think Pussy Riot are just these punks who just sort of, sang and broke windows and things. They're extremely intelligent, remarkably well informed. They know exactly what they're doing. And they have very highly intellectualized ideas about the nature of capitalism in the 21st century and the nature of democracies and what they are and how they should develop and how technology should be harnessed. And there is a large group of young people out there who are extremely intelligent and who realize there's something deeply wrong. We can't just let things go on